The Transition Sentinel was one of the most anticipated long travel 29er bikes for 2018. So the question begs, does this bike live up to all the hype? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, Josh from Daily Mountain Bike Rider here, and today I want to review and rate the new 2018 Transition Sentinel. This is a bike I was able to demo just about a week ago here in Bellingham on our local trails, and it was great for me to get a full understanding about what this new bike is all about. Now before we get into how it rides, let's talk a little bit about the components that were on the bike I demoed. I got to demo the top of the line spec, which is the X01 build, but this bike also comes in two other specs. Across all the lines though, the one thing that is the same is this is a full aluminum frame that's built around 140 millimeters of travel in the rear and 160 up front. The bike I rode had a Fox 36 up front, and that was the Elite fork, and in the rear was a Fox DPX2, which was a Performance Elite as well. The shock and the fork have all the damping and all the fun tech that the top of the line factory Fox suspension has. The only difference is they don't have that gold Kashima coating, so it made for a really soft and just great ride. Now, building our way up from the bottom, it has E13 wheels that are attached to E13 hubs, and those hubs are huge. So they're super stable, super stiff, and give a great ride. Drivetrain is brought to you by SRAM. It's a mix of X01 and GX Eagle. The only bummer is the cassette is GX Eagle, which that's where you save a ton of weight with the X01. Brakes are also brought to you by SRAM, and they have the new 2018 code brakes. They're a lot like the guides in that they are a quad piston brake, except they have a little more power is what SRAM says about them. Continuing up from the bike, you have just a typical RockShox reverb dropper with a nice 1x dropper lever. Your cockpit is brought to you by Raceface, and it's just turbine stuff. And last but not least, Transition's house brand Anvil takes up the saddle that you sit on. Overall, at $5,000 for the bike that I rode, it's definitely a great spec, but it's pretty much what you would expect for spending $5,000 on an aluminum bike. Now let's talk about how it rode. And first, let's talk about the one thing we all want to know about, the thing I wanted to know about, and that was descending. This is where the Sentinel and I feel like a lot of Transition's bikes really just come into their own. This year, Transition came out with this new design they call SBG, which is Speed Balance Geometry. And as this chart shows, it changes 5 main features of the bike. But the most notable is that they have a new fork offset that is less offset than normal forks. And basically what they did is they lengthened the top tube, shortened the stem, and accommodated by making a slacker head tube angle so that you can have this long travel, just really long base bike, but still be able to control it and not feel like you have a super long front end. And this really came out when I rode it. You feel not just inside of the bike, which you totally do. And what I mean by that is having 140 millimeters in the rear kind of gets you into that squatted position. So you really feel low to the ground and ready to charge. But you feel, for lack of better terms, balanced. It's not like you're all weighted over your rear wheel or too weighted over your front wheel in corners. You just really feel stable and settled, and like you can go off huge kickers or down super technical terrain and you're just gonna float down all of it. So this bike descended like a beast. I rode it primarily on flow trails. I also climbed it up technical, and I went down just some technical kind of enduro style trails, and I felt like overall this bike, it's hard to beat as far as descending goes. Now the flip side of that coin is of course climbing, and most of us don't have a ton of lift access available to us all the time, so that means we have to climb our bike, and this is where the bike suffered a little bit. Now Transition claims in their new SBG that their bikes are going to climb better, but being a long travel 29er and really being set up for descending, it just didn't climb great. I felt like around corners or slow technical just climbs that it was hard to just keep the wheel tracking. It felt like a big bike. The bike also weighs 33 pounds with pedals. 33 pounds. I'm not a weight weenie. I don't really care that much about 3 extra pounds or whatever, but you feel that it's a heavy bike, and that comes in its own really in climbing and stuff. So anyway, the bike descends great. Climbing's not so great. Technical is pretty good, but it's a lot of bike to throw around. And so overall, man, I think it's a great bike, and I don't think there's any terrible bikes out there for climbing. But the real question is, who is the Transition Sentinel for? And the more I thought about it, and I've really been thinking about this week, man, this bike, more than any other long travel 29er I've rode, really is designed to be used as a lift access bike. In a lot of ways, it feels like a miniature downhill rig. And I've got the Evil Wreckoning, and it kind of has that title as well, but the Evil Wreckoning is kind of a multiple trick pony because it climbs really well, whereas the Sentinel did not. So if you're a person who likes to go on long 20-mile bike rides, if you find yourself doing cross country half the time and enduro and downhill the other time, I wouldn't suggest the Sentinel to you. But if you live for those downhills, if you're doing downhill access all the time and you just live to just shred downhills, then obviously this bike is totally for you. Now, regardless, I think anybody who buys the bike is gonna love it. I actually pre-ordered the Sentinel, but instead things fell through, and so I went with a Reckoning. And if I would have gotten that bike, I could have looked over the climbing issues and just had a bike that I love to ride in all circumstances. All that to say, that's just my review and rating of the bike. My encouragement to you is go find a Transition dealer and try it out yourself. And not only that, try out a couple of other of Transition's bikes. I'm really curious to try out the Smuggler now, which is their shorter travel 29er bike, because I think with their new SBG, it's going to be even better for less travel. All right, that's it for me, Josh from Daily Mountain Bike Rider. Thanks so much for tuning in, and my encouragement as always, please just put a like, hit that like button down below, leave a comment if you agree with me or disagree with me or have any other questions, and please, please, please hit that subscribe button. It does two things. One, it keeps you up to date with everything we have going on here, I have going on here, and two, it's a huge help to me as I continue to grow this channel. All right, that's it, time for my send off. You know what time it is. Don't watch too much YouTube, get off your computer, get off your phone, and go ride your bike. And while you're riding your bike, try to remember to do that every day so that you can get better like I'm trying to do every single day.